All right, the next thing I would like to do is to make the tree root be of type TaskQueue, not type task. So let's add an identifier that does that. Declare ID TaskQueue like this, and then over here where we create our tree, that's where we'll make that. So we'll go to our create tree. Go to our create tree. Let's see, is that where I'm doing that? Yeah, go down to create tree. All right, now that we're down here, and now let's add a flag that lets us indicate whether or not the tree should be the root or not. So we go to our create tree guy over here, and we're going to change this to be let's see, it's going to be bool make root like that, and then in our function here we'll do the same thing, bool make root, and now we can change this to be we can change this to say make root question mark, then it should be identifiers TaskQueue. Whoops, let me spell that right. TaskQueue. Otherwise, do the regular one like that. All right, let's see if there are any issues with that. Yep, lots of issues. Oh, and this is spelled wrong. So fix that. All right, so almost every task is not going to be the root. So let's give a default value to this to be false, and now we can just look for where we're creating root nodes, which is going to be create default task, and in the new button. So this is true. Let's see. Let's go find our new button, and then I don't think there's anywhere else that we do this. So let's see. New tree equals this guy. Okay, so this is the spot. This is the root of the tree. Let's build it and see if it's cool. All right, it's built successfully. So let's delete our task files one more time. This and this and this, and our settings file, and rerun, and to regenerate them, and then we'll take a look. Okay, let's close that. Let's take a look. This is our default. Open with, let's see. Okay, great. So this one says TaskQueue is the root, and then all the rest of the nodes are task nodes. That's awesome. What about our settings file? And this is still TaskQueue settings. Okay, so that's fine. Let's get rid of this. And I'm curious. Let's see what happens if we delete our default.task that's not there and run it, and let's see. I think we've encountered this a few times. Let's actually deal with it. Okay, so if our file does not exist, we should probably handle this now. All right, let's kill the app and let's add some stuff. All right, so let's swap this out. Let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of that. Let's add some conditionals. So we'll do if current file dot exists as file, then we can reset tree root. Reset tree root with the current file. Else, and now this is where we'll do our jassert false. We'll create our default task, do our task folder thing, create our default task file, update our default task on disk, and then change our settings, and then do our load tree. Basically, we're going to do exactly this, which means we should probably refactor this into a function at some point. All right, so let's take a look here. All right, we got our settings file and no file to load, so it should do this. It should create the default one. All right, cool. That file doesn't exist, so it's going to get created. And there we go. All right, let's quit this and take a look at our settings file. We'll just right-click here, open with Visual Studio Code. Okay, great, that's there. That's expected. And now let's look at our actual settings, our default.task. One more time. Okay, cool. All right, let's create a new one and make sure that that does what we expect it to do. All right, new, test, and close. And now let's look at that file. Open with Visual Studio Code. All right, perfect. So TaskQueue is the root, and then task is the children. Awesome. let's do that refactor for creating and loading the default task. So we're up here at create default task, and there's nothing in here that uses any member variables other than, let's see, this thing right here. There's nothing in here and nothing in here that uses any member functions except for this load tree guy right there. So we can put all of this and all that default task stuff in utilities, in the utilities file. So we can move this guy, and we can also move our create tree function. All right, so let's do that now. Let's go over here. Let's go to utilities. We're going to put this stuff below add app info to tree. All right, let's go back to our header file. Let's grab our create tree. Just cut that guy. Put that here in utilities at the bottom. And then let's also grab our create default task. Cut that guy. Cut that guy, paste that down here, and then let's make a create default tree. Let's see, void create default tree. Oh, just a declaration for right now. All right, let's start moving these things over. So let's grab our create tree function. Create tree. We can just grab this and cut it. Cut. And go over here, go down to the bottom, and paste, get rid of the class qualifier. Like that. All right, let's grab our create default task guy next. That's this one here. Cut, and paste that below create tree. We can get rid of this stuff. And the fully qualified name needs to go. All right, let's go back down here. Now for our create, we're going to move this to utilities. All right, so let's just cut this and leave the load tree alone. And put this down here at the bottom. Let's do void create default tree and just paste it here. Now for this to work, we need a settings file. So let's get our settings. Auto settings file equals get settings file, and then auto settings equals load tree from disk settings file. We can use this is valid settings, that member function of the value tree class, to determine whether or not our settings file was cool, and let's just make this thing return a boolean as to whether or not it was able to create the tree or not. So we can do if settings.isValid. All right, who knows, it might not be valid for some reason. And if it is valid, then we can do this. Settings.setProperty. All right, we're going to set it to our default task, save it, and then we can return true. And if it's not, then we would return false. So we just need to change this to bool, like that. Okay, so let's just change this return type. All right, so now we've got our create default tree. So let's go back here and let's just comment out what's going on here. Get rid of this. So if our thing is cool, load it. If it's not, then jassert false. Right, current file doesn't exist. And now we can say if create default tree. If we were able to create the default tree, then we can try to load it. Else, we got some major problems. Jassert false. Let's see. Let's leave ourselves a little note. Major problems. If you can't create the default tree, maybe throw. What would we do? Maybe we would throw an error during error dialog or something, and then quit. And quit. Maybe something like that. Let's see. That same thing is going to happen here. So we'll comment that out. Comment out this load tree. And honestly, this seems like the kind of thing where we should actually, since we're doing it both here and here, we should just refactor it into a function altogether. So let's do exactly that. Let's write a function down here, try to load default tree. Let's put that down here. Void try to load default tree, like this. And we'll put that in between reset tree root and whatnot. And that'll go here. void TaskQueue container. Try to load default. Let's copy the name. Try to load default tree, and we're gonna say jassert false. Well, basically we can just copy these guts in here. This right here, we can just copy this. And now we can just change this to just say try to load default tree. Same thing for right here. All of this can be replaced with that. Try to load default tree. Okay, cool. Let's do a quick build. Make sure we don't have any errors. All right. All right, let's get rid of these two comments. And now let's delete our tasks and rerun. Should be good. Should be cool. Let's see. Rerun. I'm not going to update that settings file, but this should catch the issues. Yep. Okay, and let's try to create it and load it. Awesome. Very cool. So that's nice and streamlined. So hopefully we never hit right here in this major problems if we can't even create the default guy.